Hello, everyone, and welcome. I am Shannon Farley. I'm lucky to be the co-founder of Fast Forward. Welcome back to Fast Forward's Academy. Today, I'm really excited about the conversation we're about to have with Rachel Robinson of Thorn about why cultivating your organization's culture is key to building a successful and supportive team. But first, a little bit about Fast Forward. We believe the best tech should be applied to our biggest social problems. That's why we focus exclusively on supporting tech nonprofits scale. Our main program is an accelerator program for tech nonprofits. 59 organizations have graduated from the accelerator program, and those teams have gone on to serve 88 million people and raised over 275 million in follow-on funding. We just closed applications for our summer's program, but if you are hearing about us for the first time today and tuning in and you know you're the best tech nonprofit in the world and you need an accelerator program, just let us know and we'll hook it up. I'm really excited to be here. This Academy is a program that we recently launched to provide some support to tech nonprofits that are working on scale. This is our second to last session, and so it's going to be wonderful. The Fast Forward Academy was made possible by the eBay Foundation and Comcast Business, so thank you for their support. We also want to thank our sustaining premier partners, Google.org, BlackRock, HPE Foundation, Twilio.org, GM, and Okta. They fuel this work. And as a special treat today, if you hang out towards the end for networking, you have a chance to win an eBay gift card. Okay, we're about to get started, so just a few norms. Before we meet Rachel, we just want to let you know that this class is being recorded. So please stay on mute when you're not speaking, and during the Q&A, use the raise your hand feature to ask questions. You can find it at the bottom of your Zoom screen in the reaction section. If you don't have that on your Zoom, that's okay. You can just ask your question in the chat and we'll get to it. Please share about this class on social. We'd love to hear from you. All right, are you ready to kick it off? Today's teacher is Rachel Robinson, and I really couldn't be more excited to have her here. Rachel Robinson is the head of people and culture at Thorn, and Thorn is a tech nonprofit that builds technology to defend children from sexual abuse. Thorn builds powerful products and develops awareness to attack the issue of child sexual abuse, including child trafficking, from all sides. Their tool Spotlight is a sex trafficking investigations tool that has identified nearly 20,000 children since 2014. And I have to say, I can't imagine something that is more challenging than working on child abuse and sex trafficking day in and day out. So you can imagine how important a healthy, supportive culture is. And that's what Rachel's going to talk about today. And just also as a plug, Thorn has been fully remote from the beginning. And when we started lockdown, and Fast Forward, and me in particular, were in like a little bit of crisis around how you run an effective organization from Zoom, we used a tool that Thorn produced on how to support teams in a work from home environment. And it really changed how we showed up for the last 14 months. So I'm so grateful to share some of that wisdom from Rachel here today. Welcome, Rachel.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. I'm really excited to join you to talk about a subject that I'm passionate about, building a team and culture to drive success. Before we start, I wanted to get to know everybody a little bit better. I'd love to find out, how big is your team currently? Maybe it's of a size where you can hold up and count on one hand or two, but if you could hold up fingers or drop a number in the chat to let me know the size of your team, I would love to hear that.
We're 7. Hold up your fingers, my friends. All right, we got some 8s. We got 5, 4, 1. A lot of 1s. 2, 8, 5. All right, small teams. Oh, plus 20. Thank you, Shelby.
Awesome. Well, it's lovely to meet you all. As you heard, Thorn is a nonprofit that builds technology to protect children from sexual abuse. To give you an idea of where we are right now, we are around 86 people across 28 states and 2 countries. We are expanding into Europe and actively hiring to grow to a team of around 110. For the person that said they're a team of one, I want to talk a little bit about where we started. This is what day one looked like when I joined Thorn almost 4 years ago. I was hire number 11 into a remote team, and I was the first people hire. I had to buy my own laptop. There was no onboarding. There wasn't even a list of who everybody was in the organization. There was definitely a to-do list, and I didn't get paid in the first payroll. I was building from a green field, but honestly, I find that exciting and energizing, and I hope that you do too. My background is running global hiring teams for investment banks. I've created infrastructure for startups, and I've also worked in nonprofits. And from day one, I had a clear vision. It was to create an organization of excellence and a culture that would respect, reflect, and honor the talented team that I was working alongside and supercharge the impact that they were making in the world. I wanted to bring the best of all the workplaces I had experienced together into one place. And then I had to figure out how to pivot that to remote. I began working against that vision, and I built out infrastructure, operations, finance, hiring, and a people team. But for 18 months, it was just me. Now we've grown to a team of 7 doing that work. As I built towards that vision, I wanted to share with you the 6 guiding questions that I frequently revisit and that have really provided me with a helpful anchor and framework for decision-making and growth. The 6 questions to build for success are: 1, what do we stand for? 2, what are we building towards? 3, what people do we need? 4, what do our people need? 5, what does this feel like? And 6, what's next? Let's walk through these questions together, and I will share a few examples of how they really help to shape our journey at Thorn. Congratulations. You are all here because you're creators. You are building a company, which can be invigorating, it can be challenging, it can be exciting, and it is hard. It requires focus, laser focus, which sometimes can unwittingly produce blind spots. It's really important to take a moment at this stage. I encourage you to stop and think about what you stand for. One lesson that I have learned is the benefit of creating moments and practices of pause, to just reflect, to look back, to look up, to look around you, examine your surroundings. At Thorn, we really hold 2 things in balance. I constantly try and balance the kids that we serve and our people. It helps to guide hard decisions and triage our priorities when we put things through that lens. We build values first. As you grow, be intentional. Take a moment to sit down with your co-founders and your co-workers, if you have them, and think about what you stand for. What do you value about how you build, not just what you build? Identify and name your company values. From the start, we thought really deliberately about what that meant to us, the things on which we would not compromise. We went through an intentional values naming process that resulted in a combination of actual and aspirational values for Thorn. And since that time, really, my work has just been trying to shift the needle from aspirational towards actual. How we did that is that we were in person in a team meeting, and we had everybody just take Post-it notes and stick things on the wall, talking about the values and the practices and things that they'd seen at Thorn that they wanted to hold true to as we grew. We looked for places that there was synergy, overlap, where there were gaps, and what things that we felt were true that were missing. And we distilled that into our values and our cultural practices. I'd encourage you to do the same, whether it's on Post-its when you can be together or through a tool like Mural as you're remote. Just ask every employee to write down what they think are the values and cultural practices for your organization. We really tried to build authentically, incorporating our values into the hiring, our performance reviews, our policies, our benefits. We also made sure to communicate our values frequently, and we hold firm to them, we anchor in them, and we really do check in on them often. Our values at Thorn are trust, inclusion, and resilience. And everything we do is driven by our values and our cultural practices. We build our culture on those shared practices, and while our culture may change over time, our values will not. So you might ask, okay, that sounds great, but what does that look like? How do I put that in place? So let's talk about a few practical ways that we have operationalized our values. We foster an environment of trust by writing and sharing our individual user guides. Transparent to each other, they provide a cheat sheet on how we like to communicate, how we like to learn, how we like to receive feedback, and any logistics that we want to share. One example of what might be shared in a user guide is a colleague might share that to really focus and process information, they have to write. So now next time I hop on a Zoom with that person and they are not holding eye contact, but I see them looking down, there's no misunderstanding. I will just simply know that they're focused on what I'm saying. We have open calendars and flexibility, and we encourage employees to write no and build in breaks when they need them. We know that our employees are intrinsically motivated and that they know how they work best, and we rely on them to tell us. Perhaps you have an employee that likes to start early and take a break to work out in the day, or one like me that blocks time out to watch their kids play volleyball games when that was still a thing. Both of these practices are things that we socialize with new hires, and we name them. If you don't write them down and share your practices, how is a new employee to feel included? Or how are you sure that everybody knows the unwritten rules that apply to them? We're also committed to building a culture of work that's inclusive. We prioritize sharing information first with our internal team, before our external partners. Often in meetings, I will be heard repeating, "Do our team know about this?" We set up practices for what should be shared and where, and that can get confusing as you grow between Google Drive, Slack, emails, meetings, intranets, newsletters. We build transparency into our board and leadership meetings. We set up a practical guide on how to use Slack with tips and tools. Nobody likes that here. And a code of conduct. And we expect that from our team and our partners. We also have a guide to what all the emojis mean. At Thorn, we give a taco emoji when somebody's done an amazing job. And if you've done a truly phenomenal job, sometimes you get a taco truck. Where possible, we push updates into open forums and open channels, while also calibrating the level of detail is correct and not distracting. We're trying to enable work. We're not trying to do information overload. Where possible at Thorn, we avoid scheduling meetings at the very start or end of a workday, and we look for slots that are fair to employees in all time zones. Has your team talked about whether your stand-up meetings work for everyone? Is one member of the team always having their lunch scheduled over? If you moved a meeting by 30 minutes, would it mean they could go pick up their kid every day and still make the meeting? You should ask them. I'll give you an example of how this worked in the early days for us at Thorn. We were setting up a new product and had a very new product team. It was a very small team, and we had budget for them to get together once a quarter. And as they decided to book their meetings, they were very, very thoughtful about it. They decided to rotate between each of the individual team members' locations. And the first place they chose was an employee that was restricted as far as travel because of their spouse's job. And they also had 2 young children. And normally they had to do take the biggest plane ride to come and visit the others. So they went to them first. They were thoughtful. They put others' needs above themselves. It was so fun to watch when they went to this team meeting in this employee state. They sent back photos of them all kind of riding around town in this employee's minivan. They went to their house for dinner and got to meet their family. But what was most important about that was that they were thoughtful. They put others first, and there was kindness and intention behind the choices that they made. Another thing we talk about is Pac-Man. I don't know if you remember that old kind of video game icon. It kind of looks like a pie with a slice out of it. But think about the posture and that shape. When we are together in person, we often talk about Pac-Man. We ask people to make sure that they're just a little bit more open in their posture, that they open up space so that they're inviting others in, so that new people or people that don't usually work together don't see a closed circle, but see a space and an invitation to call them into that. Our third value is resilience. This is deeply embedded in the way that we give our team agency over how they work. We build in regular breaks and we close down as a company for 2 weeks every winter. We also close for a week over Thanksgiving. And unless you're on call, in which case you take additional vacation at other times, our company is closed. We've integrated wellness practices, which we'll talk about a little bit later. It's not always possible to plan and give notice for everything, particularly when you're an early stage startup. But where you can, you should. Not everything should be a last minute fire drill if it doesn't have to be. We can plan better. We can push out a calendar of events. We also make sure that we track vacation. We have unlimited vacation, but we do track it to make sure that our team take it. Every quarter, we provide reports and we nudge employees if they're not taking enough time off. In COVID, we realized that nobody wanted to take vacation because nobody could go anywhere. But you still need that break. We all still need those days where we're not beholden to our calendar or Zoom. And so we decided to close every Friday in August. As founders and early stage employees, I would really encourage you to think about your own self-care and wellness practices for you to model that from the top. The second guiding question is, what are we building towards? This is where you need to be led by your vision and not lose sight of that as you get caught up in the day-to-day execution, which honestly can so easily happen in a scrappy startup. Remember my day one vision. At Thorn, we strive to cultivate a people-first, remote, and in real life workplace and an organization of excellence. As I shared, and I think has also was shared with you, Thorn has always been remote first. Recognizing that right now we're all working from a pandemic, can you maybe react with either a physical thumbs up or use your Zoom thumbs up just to let me know if you plan to stay remote longer term?
2, 3, 4, some half thumbs I see. Yeah, it's looking about half of our audience is doing some form of remote first going forward.
Awesome. Well, I am personally biased here towards remote work, but I am excited that there's a new way of work opening up for us all. To plan for success for your company, you need to beware of short-term thinking. As a tech startup, we wanted to ensure that all our practices and ways of working respected those origins. We lean into and heavily rely on digital tools. Many vendors will give you a nonprofit discount. I always ask for one. And often you can set up the bare bones of a system before you layer on additional modules or features that you don't need yet and that will cost you more. But you have set in place a framework that will grow with you, and you are creating efficiency and simplicity that will later fuel your growth and stabilize your operations. Definitely bootstrap while you need to, but then jump to the right scalable tool. Don't put in place something that will only work for the next short-term horizon. Later, you'll have to change it, and you want to find things that integrate with your other HR tech stack. I'll give you an example. We put in place Greenhouse, our applicant tracking system, very early on to build a foundation for growth. We wanted to be able to attract a diverse team, ensure equitable hiring practices, and offer a good candidate experience. I personally have a hugely supportive CEO who is not afraid to commit budget on my recommendations. We work together as a team. I often joke that when Julie bought me Greenhouse, it was the best end of year holiday gift she could have given me. I was so excited. However, buying that tool allowed me to amplify my impact even further. I was a people team of one, and giving me that tool allowed us to push hiring another recruiter until further down the line. When we first got it, we were processing around 100 applications a month, and now we average over 1,000 every month. And we've been able to make that journey with the same tool. Another example is CultureAmp. When we were small, Gusto was our payroll platform, which I highly recommend. They have an option to send out monthly pulse surveys, and we always use them. We found really valuable insights. One time I was so excited because we received a slam poetry submission about working at Thorn, and that has become part of our legend. As we started to grow and seek more insights, we implemented the basic version of CultureAmp. We started off small, using it just to do biannual engagement surveys. And now we use it for all our engagement, our performance management, our goal setting, our onboarding, our exit surveys. Both of these tools were put in right before we needed them, but with hindsight, it was just at the right time, and now they're foundational. I believe that Fast Forward have kindly offered to send out a list of tools that I recommend by email to you later. The third guiding question is, what people do we need? We need diverse and unique perspectives on our teams. Fast Forward has an excellent section in their Hiring Tech Nonprofit Playbook. So if you haven't read it, my first recommendation is go read it. It has such amazing information in there. But from my experience, an individual can be a great hire for their area of expertise, but may not thrive in a startup environment. Attributes that I seek in every candidate, regardless of role, are creative problem solvers, those with a growth mindset. I don't know if you have a moment, if you could maybe just drop into the chat and tell me a little bit about what a growth mindset means to you.
Looking at the chat.
If you don't know, that's
Here we go. Abundance, not scarcity. Thank you, Kayla. Risk-taking from Dana. Solutions-oriented from Lucia. Humble from Darnell.
Awesome.
Always willing to learn and go forward. Sees feedback and failure as an opportunity to grow. Recognizing that all of us can learn to grow.
Exactly. You guys have it. It is the belief that you will grow better through feedback, embracing challenges, and you can build on your abilities. If you have not watched Carol Dweck's TED Talk on growth mindset, I highly recommend it. Having a growth mindset is a quality that not only do you want in your people, but you want in your organization. We also seek to find people that are inclusive and that amplify others, those that are able to think across multiple horizons, curious learners, and people that are motivated by hard things and mission. Most importantly, do not lose sight of the candidate experience. First and foremost, you are ambassadors for your mission. We have candidates that did not receive a job offer, but became financial supporters of our work as a result of the hiring process. The fourth guiding question is, what do our people need? We all want our teams to flourish and to stay until they move on to their next play, not feel that they have to leave because they're burnt out or frustrated. I've learned that a lot of building trust with your team is simply showing up in small ways over and over again. I once owned a horse that lived on open space and had an incident that scared him. And I could not go near him for nearly 6 weeks. I had lots of friends that were horse experts. I am not. Shout out to anybody that it is. And they gave me lots of advice on how to approach it, but it didn't work. And so I lent on what I knew, which was just to turn up. So I would go and hang out in his pasture. Shout out for remote work. Sometimes I would take my laptop and work for Thorn from that pasture. I would sing to him. I would hang out with him. I would spend time there. And over time, I got him to come closer to me and even to eat hay off my knee. And then eventually he would let me halter him and we built that trust back. But what I knew was that it couldn't be fast-tracked. It was built in those small moments, in those things that you do repeatedly over and over again. And we were able over time to find that journey back to trust together. Now, why am I telling you about my horse? Because that's something that you can apply to the workforce. And it's really important to trust yourselves and know that what you have learned in different areas of your life are things that you can bring into your culture at work. I simply took that lesson and thought about the ways that I could show up to my team over and over again and build that trust that we need to do this work together. Your team need to know that you care by making their lives easier. When we were in the middle of launching a new product, I thought about what it would be like to be in person when one of our teams was head down on a launch. Let's think what that would look like. We'd be walking past and saying, well done. We'd be staying late with them, perhaps. We would order pizza probably and eat with them. But we can't do that remotely. What I try and do is reinvent moments, not simply replicate them. What we can do is change our Slack status. So we did. We changed it to the logo for the product and we all wrote messages of support and encouragement on our Slack status. When the product launch team look up from their desks, they feel seen and they feel supported by their colleagues. And we stayed that way for a few days until they were done. They knew we were with them. And when they launched, we celebrated together. Your team should see you notice the details and create moments. You can really start this very simply at this stage. Think about how you celebrate anniversaries or new hires. Be thoughtful though. Maybe not everyone wants their birthday celebrated. You should ask them. If your workforce is building tech for good, as they are, it's really important to build protection from burnout. This can be done by removing the obstacles and frustrations that can lead to burnout. I see my role as primarily clearing the way for my coworkers to do the most meaningful work of their careers. If it gets in their way, I want them to let me know, and we build trust because they know I will act. A simple example here is paying your team's expenses on time. It's their money, get it back to them as quickly as you can. You need to invest in sustainability and resilience. It's much more cost effective to keep your knowledge and experts longer term. There is a cost to caring. You need to recognize that and create practices. And as leaders in your company, show that example of rest and self-care. Recently, we reviewed our policies and added in a sabbatical policy. Wellness. Prioritizing employee wellness is so critical, and I'm conscious of time, and I know I could spend an hour on this topic alone. So with the limited time that we have, I'll just share some ways that we focus on wellness at Thorn. We've built our practices early on with guidance from a partner that specializes in trauma-informed work. Our wellness practices at Thorn include voluntary group and individual sessions with trauma-informed therapists, as well as topic-specific sessions. And what we learn in those spaces is infused into everything we do. We incorporate check-ins as part of our meetings and one-on-ones. We model vulnerability. In our benefits, we reflect care for our team and their supporters. We pay 100% of the premium for medical, dental, and vision for our employees, their spouse or partner, and their dependents. We offer headspace as a benefit. We wrote a guide that we share with all new hires when they receive an offer on how to talk about this role. This is a hard role to talk about. Our partners at the Workplace Wellness Project have shared with us that community is the antidote to trauma. Connection and protection bring our nervous systems back into feeling safe, from where it's possible to think, and from where working, relating, and prioritizing is possible. My work is focused on bringing a sense of stability and safety for our team. We actively work to foster community at Thorn. We have a Slack channel called Team Gratitude, which as tech nonprofits, you should all be able to set up, to which we added a little bot that our team can submit anonymous gratitude notes that get posted into the channel. It was inspired by one of our team receiving Valentine's notes from their kids. We host community tables, just Calendly events that our employees can host about anything. We've had them about soccer and tattoos. We limit the number so that it's like heading out to a community dinner table together after work. We play telestrations and have a channel called Sprinkle Joy, where we share weekly prompts for our team. And in November, we always run a gratitude exchange event. With wellness, don't be afraid to start small. The wins can come from unexpected places. We are all still beginners and learning how to approach an organization through the lens of wellness. We need to learn together. And we need to normalize asking for help and saying when we're struggling. We appreciate that somebody can have a difficult moment or a day, and in that moment, we encourage them to lean into our flexibility. Go take a walk, take your kids to the park. But then when we come back together the next day, we don't expect to see them necessarily in the same place. We allow people to flex. People are fluid and so are their needs. They can have a bad day, but it's also okay for them to show up the next day and not be in the same space. We understand that they move between places. The fifth guiding question is, how does this feel? Not just for one team member, but for every team member. We want to ensure that we leave no one behind. I'm a parent of a child with a learning difference, and I have come to understand how the same experience can be received and felt differently by people. A fast-paced remote company might favor those who think on their feet. They can show up on Zoom and they can shine 6 times a day. But others might need more time to process information, or they might communicate their ideas differently. How do we create an environment that allows everyone to flourish so we leave no one behind? At Thorn, we know that our employees come to our mission with different experiences and different personal perspectives, and that is what we welcome. In addition to creating forums for expression, we use data to listen to feedback and test what we're doing. Originally our pulse surveys, now our engagement surveys. You could start with a simple Google Form submission. Don't be afraid of feedback, it's a gift. I always tell everybody on my team that the only feedback I am scared of hearing is that which is not voiced. If I don't hear it, I haven't got the opportunity to admit that we could do better, or that I can fix it and learn and move forward. Have hard conversations if you need to. It can be a place of growth. And don't shy away from conflict. What you're trying to build is safety so that people can share candidly. The final guiding question is, what's next? You should be building for the next horizon so that as you scale, you can anticipate issues and solve for them quickly. Invest in growing your people and look forward, but don't forget where you came from. Keep dreaming, keep telling your story, keep celebrating the wins. At one offsite that we held when we were around about 40 people, we sat in a circle and shared our origin story of how we came to Thorn. It was emotional, it was celebratory, it was long, and it was connective. It was just a wonderful experience together. It's important to remember those moments. We have a Slack channel called Wins, and we make sure that the bar to post there is low. Not every win has to be an amazing story from the field. We have wins in the everydayness of how we work together. I really hope that from today's presentation that you will understand how using these questions as a framework can help you shape your culture and team, and be encouraged that even the small steps that you're taking now will lay that foundation for the future.